So good morning and welcome to the latest Insurance Times webinar in association with Markel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Katie Scott and I'm the Associate Editor at Insurance Times. I'll be chairing today's discussion, which will be around how commercial brokers can achieve success and grow post-pandemic. So at this point, I'd just like to flag that this is a pre-recorded webinar, so we won't be taking any live questions. If you do have a question for one of our panelists, then please do get in touch with the Insurance Times team or myself directly, and we can pass your questions on to the relevant panelists. And speaking of panelists, I'm just going to do a quick introduction of who I have with me today. So we have Nick Brown, who is the Sales and Marketing Director at Markel. We have Phil Barton, Chief Executive of Partners And. We have Simon Mabb, who is the Managing Director of Commercial Insurance at Romero Insurance Brokers, and Neil Galliard, who is Divisional Managing Director at Markel. So welcome, everybody. Nice to have you with us today. So I thought to kick off, we could start by having a look at the current lay of the land for the commercial broking market and how it's been impacted by COVID-19. So in particular, perhaps the new challenges that brokers are having to help their SME clients with. So who would like to kick off and help set the scene for us?
Yeah, I'm happy to, Katie. Look, it's been a hugely busy time for brokers, I think. Clients have needed advice more than ever, and we've had to stand up to the challenge. So lots of husbanding resources, helping clients manage their cost profile, perhaps pausing policies or sawing vehicles and the like. So lots of work to do, and certainly no time to furlough staff.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think there's been lots of different things happening. Some clients have had to close down their businesses at quite a rapid rate, so have needed advice on that. And then obviously at the other end of the scale, once we've started to reopen, helping clients with checklists around what they need to do in terms of reopening. Obviously, some businesses have pivoted quite quickly. So a classic example would be, a brewery that's probably, or a gin maker suddenly turned into a hand sanitizer maker very quickly. So lots of different challenges. We had hotels that were potentially going to be requisitioned to become hospitals, where the Nightingale started up, or accommodation for different individuals. So lots of different challenges happening all the time at a time when we were also trying to get our own staff back to home working, or get our own systems up and running. So very, very challenging times.
I think there's been a noticeable rise in interest amongst clients in respect of cyber risk and the people issues, people risk as well. The whole concept of mental health has come to the fore. People have suddenly understood the importance of people in their business, and so there's lots of advice we can provide businesses on helping them manage the well-being of their team and manage the cyber risks associated with their business. I mean, the amount of phishing that is going on in the marketplace right now is incredible, and that's raised people's awareness to their exposures, I guess.
Yeah, totally agree.
Also, it's brought to that point, Phil. I think it's brought perhaps what a risk that people might have considered highly unlikely, if not implausible, to one that came and hit a lot of businesses, if not all businesses. And so I think we perhaps have a different view on cyber now, and what is the risks attached with things like cyber as a result of what we've seen in the pandemic. And I think, to the point of Simon's there, is that you've got these businesses that are changing, some growing rapidly, some shrinking, and at a time when they're trying to minimize costs, you've got an insurance model at the minute where prices are increasing. So, I think it really is sort of many parts, if you like, that the broker has to try and deal with at the moment with an SME client as a result directly of COVID.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And what's really refreshing is when we're having this conversation, right, we're all talking about the customer, right? Their challenges, their environment, their circumstances. I find that hugely refreshing in terms of the market, because pre-COVID, all of the articles and the media attention that we were getting was around the hardening of markets. We're seeing the commercial SME actually being in a situation where they were being driven into a situation because of the market. And I think that it's given a fantastic opportunity for brokers to really leverage their relationship with the customer and expand their dialogue outside of just insurance placement, right? And for me, that's absolutely fantastic to see, and something that we're really supportive of.
The challenge for the market, though, is on the one hand, clients are wanting more and more advice. They're more risk aware than they've ever been. They're more certain than they've ever been, and they absolutely need it. Yet the vast majority of our market has been commoditizing its proposition, simplifying its approach to client service, and going in the opposite direction to that of our customers. Yeah. And I think there's a real opportunity to align with the needs and demands and requirements of a customer by offering more and more advice. And that's at the heart of the conversation today, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously you guys are now talking about sort of the opportunities that are out there for brokers. So in a more sort of practical level, what exactly are these opportunities that brokers can help their SME clients with, really? What are the main gaps do you think that they can help to fill?
I think it's the advice piece. Phil's already mentioned it. These clients are coming to us for advice on some of the issues, particularly when they're changing their business strategies and all those sorts of things at a very quick pace. They want us to help them through that process. And, we saw a massive amount of increase in call volume coming into our business in the early part of the COVID pandemic, with people asking everything from claims queries to, what if I send my staff home? Do I need to insure my computers differently? Because I've now suddenly got people, Mary's now loading all the office computers into the back of my car, and I'm delivering them around to people's houses. All sorts of things that suddenly no one imagined. And then you've got restaurants that are asking, am I covered for the PL element of COVID? So lots of different questions, because suddenly people have become very risk aware, and they're looking for answers from this stuff. And there's been a lot of media that potentially not necessarily put out some of the right stuff, and a bit of scaremongering going around, which has created more need for those people to get that advice.
There's no doubt that the pandemic has created a discontinuity. And I think it's also created a discontinuity in the way, the opportunity to structure programs. I mean, programs in the insurance sector haven't changed for decades. Property, casualty, fleet. And if you're having a really, really, really good day, you might consider the people risk, or you might consider cyber or management liability. Well, actually, when you peel it back, the real risks affecting customers today are people related, are cyber related, are litigation related. And, you've got to ask yourself why we design the programs that we do in the way that suited businesses in the 1970s, rather than to meet the demands of today's world.
And I think, Katie, as well, I would say it's, you asked quite a broad question about how we can support the client. And I think, the broker has become more of a business partner than just a pure insurance broker. And I think, if you look at some of the support services that we provide in terms of legal advice, tax advice, what was really interesting during that lockdown period, picking up Simon's point about getting questions that no one knew how to even say furlough, whether it was furlough. We get about 250,000 calls a year into our legal advice line. And when people started ringing up, Boris would stand up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and say something, and then our phones would start ringing. We didn't even have the data until the following morning many times, but just the demand from, and these are insured clients, the demand from clients to say, can you help me with my employment situation? Because I don't know how to furlough. I don't know how to not pay my VAT bill. And the answer was simple, by the way, cancel your direct debit. So, but it was that immediacy of need and turning to someone for help, whether it was to Simon to say, what do I do about the computers I've taken home, how am I covered, or what do I do with my staff? And I think, that's where the partnership of a broker really comes through in that time of need, whether it's an insurance crisis or whether it's in what we had now, a sort of whole community crisis, but our ability to support them wider than just dealing with their pure insurance needs, I think.
Really interesting.
It's an interesting one, Katie. Sorry, just to go in, is that we very much needed this kind of pandemic to be able to drive these conversations, as Phil's alluded to, right? Which I think there. I mean, I don't want to bring the word that we all hated before we hated COVID-19, but Brexit's still happening, right? And that's going to bring a load of challenges for SMEs, especially around employment, especially around people, right? Cafe owners, etc. There's going to be a double whammy, right, in terms of what's going to be happening in 2021. And now more than ever, I think the whole message around risk advice, know your customer, be able to be in a situation to help and support is a huge differentiator. And it's not something that's happened, it's happening and will continue to happen, I think.
That's a really good point, really interesting. And sort of picking up there on what you were saying, Neil, that ties in quite nicely with Markel's recent white paper. I believe you guys have done one which is titled Driving Growth in the New Normal, a Blueprint for Commercial Broker Success When We Emerge from the COVID-19 Pandemic. And a key trend or key thing that I noted from there was that idea about the broker being a strategic business partner when working with their SME clients. So I was just wondering whether sort of Nick or Neil, you wanted to sort of talk a bit more about that and what it is and what it actually entails in terms of, like you say, Neil, perhaps offering this extra help around HR.
Yeah, so I think that the white paper is really an opportunity to highlight and provide some information, some statistics, and to be able to provide some context for the kind of things that we've just been talking about. You know, what's I think incredible, where we start with the white paper, 99% of businesses in the UK employ less than 250 people. In fact, only 8,000 companies in the UK employ more than 250 people. And for those small to mid-sized businesses in these environments with these challenges, you know, they don't have wide-ranging departments to support them. Right? You know, whether it's HR, whether it's finance, whether it's their technology solutions, you know, there is a minefield for the SME in terms of being able to access good quality information, advice, and support. You know, there are some amazing organisations like the FSB that do a great job lobbying on behalf of them and disseminating information to a whole range of SME solutions. But there is an opportunity here, given the risk relationship for a brokerage, to really add value. And the white paper is about trying to bring to life those kind of challenges that we think we're seeing and what opportunity that provides, whether it's providing advice, educating themselves about where to be able to get certain information from, so that brokers can put themselves in a situation where they can better help their customers, which in turn better develops their relationship, which in turn identifies more opportunities, as opposed to just broking insurance policies. And risk management is always going to be key within that, but there's a wider conversation that we think brokers should be aware of, and that's what the white paper is all about, is to be able to kind of put some focus around that.
Definitely, it sounds really interesting. So obviously you mentioned a few of the advantages for brokers there. Is it purely around the sort of the relationship and looking for sort of differentiation in terms of the service, or are there any other sort of key facets you think that could be an advantage for brokers? Obviously it's a beneficial for the clients, like you say, but what are the other sort of plus points in terms of brokers perhaps taking this approach?
I think it's really just an opportunity to pause and to think is what we're trying to stimulate there. You know, many brokers are doing this day in, day out. So we're not reinventing the wheel here, right? Yeah. Brokers and risk management and understanding and knowing their clients is the fabric of many broker relationships and strategies. And I think that what we're trying to be able to do is just take a pause, use the time to educate, right, themselves, better understand product solutions. I mean, the industry has, you know, taken a bit of a hammering in the last 6 to 9 months in the consumer's eye. You know, we've seen that very clearly in terms of the articles that have been around business interruption policies, as an example. I think there's an opportunity to show our mettle and the support that we can provide, and you know, that drives opportunity. It drives engagement, which in turn drives growth. And to be fair, Simon and Phil will be in a much better position to know, you know, how that affects them and their strategies, which I'm hoping is symbiotic with what we're talking about.
Well, look, the market has definitely moved, you know, over the last few years towards being price oriented and being transactional. And so any broker that is differentiating through the quality of advice is going to win. They're going to win more clients. They're going to secure those clients. They're going to grow the lifetime value of those clients through delivering more services to more clients for longer. They're also going to be more valuable as a partner to those client businesses. And as a consequence, they're going to enjoy referrals and introductions. So as our business launched in the middle of lockdown as an advice-led business, and we're benefiting and seeing the benefit of that approach every day. Through lockdown, we've grown by almost 10% compared with our base year. And that's because we're out offering a broader advice and in fact extending our advice proposition through key ecosystem partners of ours, so that increasingly we're becoming the center of influence for clients rather than just a transactional insurance broker.
Yeah, I think there's been a real sort of suck during this period of perhaps some services completely disappearing from some brokers, and that has benefited, sounds like benefited you, Phil, definitely benefited us in that area with services being locked down. And I think that was already coming, a lot of those businesses concentrating on the cost.
Okay. And so with this advisory approach then, what would we say is perhaps some of the first steps really for brokers who are looking to perhaps take this approach if they don't have it already? What do you think they should start with, really, the starting point?
My view is that the marketplace has got a little lazy. So, underwriting skills have become lax over the years, broking skills have become lax over the years, and you could argue that most of the contention is the preserve of claims. Has to sort out what poor underwriting or poor broking has delivered over the last decade or so. So, I think the opportunity is to bring some of those skills that we apply at claim stage much further forward in the process. So let's get involved more in pre-cover surveys, in claims defensibility strategies. Let's start using data better to inform and provide insight to enable us to deliver better quality advice at outset, pre-cover. And then actually the satisfaction in our industry from clients will increase. There'll be less contention around claims. We'll satisfy more claims because we've been better at presenting the risk in the first place. And I think this pandemic can be the catalyst for that in our marketplace.
And I'd add to that, which is, I think it's about working together with the right insurer partner, broker partner. So I genuinely believe that, working with the right insurer in the right sector, an example of that, and I can't think of a better example at the moment than care. If you think of the what's happening in the care sector, if you think about, the news every day about will people be tested before they go into a care home to see their relatives who they haven't seen for 8 or 9 months, having someone who understands that sector. What we do in that space is we actually have our own care practitioners. And that's not just for us to help to understand the risk, Phil, at the point of underwriting, which I think is really important, but it's then to work with the client to improve the risk. That's something that we would bring as a partner to a broker to the client. And I think, when we talked before about those legal services, those tax services, partnering with a person as a broker that can bring those services to your client, I think is really important. And I think, that sort of, it's interesting, I'm looking at Phil's picture, it says partners and, partners I think are really important in this process, in terms of how we work together. We've seen a lot of, as Nick pointed out, sort of public debate about what's happening with, business interruption claims and an almost confrontational position in terms of what was intended and what wasn't intended. But what's clear is that if brokers and insurers work together on the assessment of those risks in the first place, really understand what we're insuring, we talked about cyber earlier, and then price appropriately for that risk. It is about how we work together on this, I think, Katie, as opposed to perhaps the more transactional, commoditized type of relationship that might have existed previously.
I think where it works best is where you've got sector specialisms. if you can really drill into that sector and understand that particular sector, then I think you can really get to know your customer in a real in-depth way. I think, and brokers that have those schemes and specialisms, it does work very well there. We've got a lot of stuff in the hospitality sector, and that's enabled us to bring products out pre-COVID that are things that they are looking for. What are the risks that they're interested in? What are the things that stop them from doing business? They're the things that we've been able to develop products with insurers that fit that customer, not just rock up with a standard suite of products and say, take your pick from these. And I think the more we know about the customer, the better the products and the better the service that we can deliver. And as Phil says, once you get to that, you're taking away that constant price driving down position of just chasing the nearest pound. You will get customers that will want to do that, but you'll get a lot of customers that actually fundamentally just want good value for money with a decent product that suits their business. And I think that's what we need to be aiming for and providing all the services that fit around the outside.
You're spot on, Si. Absolutely agree with what you're saying. The pandemic and the impact on each sector of the economy has been markedly different. And what that means, and the rate of change has been so great that a generalist just can't stay ahead of where individual sectors are heading, the issues and challenges that those sectors are facing. Because, frankly, every sector of the economy is heading in a different direction. It's the most asymmetric downturn we've ever had. So specialism comes to the fore in that landscape, in that environment. And I think being an expert, as Simon is in certain sectors of the economy, hospitality is absolutely the prerequisite for growth in the marketplace we're entering into.
It's really interesting. Are there any other sectors that you think perhaps provide a good opportunity here for brokers to really take this advisory stance and really help here? Obviously, we've mentioned hospitality and the care sector. Are they the two main ones, or are there any other sectors that you think brokers could really be targeting with this particular approach?
Well, we early on in the first lockdown, we commissioned some work with Bristol University on looking at 40 different economic sectors and forecasting how they would perform in a post-COVID economy over the next 5 years and in each discrete period over that period. And so we've got a good sense of where there's going to be a following wind and where those businesses are going to grow, and equally where there's going to be a challenged sector. Now, that doesn't mean you wouldn't enter into that sector. You're sort of pursuing a conversation which says, where is there distress and can brokers help? Well, yes, they can if they have expertise in that sector. But actually, as we grow our business, we're looking to partner with firms who are in growth sectors. Life sciences, science and tech space is growing incredibly. And so our advice capability, combined with rapid growth in the sector, is a recipe for success. I think the fortunate position that we find ourselves in is that we are a really relatively new business, and we can game the UK economy. We can overweight our position in sectors that are receptive to advice and growing, and that's different to a more established broker that is largely a bellwether of the economy. It's very difficult for a large broker that is generalist to be able to pursue a markedly different strategy and align with what is the most asymmetric downturn this economy has ever had.
I think one of the other things on that, Katie, I think we launched a new product about it's nearly 2 years ago now, 18 months ago, for the tech businesses. And it's quite interesting there because I don't look at that as a sector. I look at it as almost like a model, a capability. And the majority of customers that were tech were actually on commercial combined policies. So the ability to really understand the client, get them on the right product and bring then the right support. I mean, there's some little fact through lockdown which might be interesting. Is one of the things we do on the tech side is we help people who are tech businesses or people investing in R&D to get money back through revenue. HMRC give a very generous benefit to people investing in R&D. Through lockdown, we've generated £16 million back for our insured clients, and that's cash flow at a time when they really needed it. But forget COVID for a minute, we do 40 million per annum for those customers anyway. So if you start talking about, linking back to what we were talking about earlier, identifying the business model that your client has got, and then how we can support them, and we support brokers with that as well. So how we support them in delivering for their clients, such that their clients can then reinvest in their own businesses. So, you know, to Phil's point there and Simon's point, there are very clear sectors that people see themselves in, but there's also the model and how insurance responds to that model, I think. And a broker is in a brilliant position to be able to really just take a look at their client. How have they changed, to Simon's point, over this last 9 months? What was their business? What is their business now? Have we got them on the right product? Are we supporting them in the right way? Because if they've changed, the likelihood is that we haven't really taken the step back and really understood what we can do for that client now going forward.
Therein lies the importance of relationship, Neil. You know, if you're trying to provide advice to a moving target from your desk, rather than visiting the client and understanding their needs and understanding how their business has evolved or changed, you're on a hiding to nothing. The idea of this, let's move all of our advice to remote call centers to service clients in a cost-efficient way, it's hugely dangerous when businesses are changing so rapidly.
Totally, yeah, and I think that's where the opportunity lies for, you know, for brokers that are, you know, that can make that work, you know, without going down to too much of a commoditized product, where you can get the advice and where customers appreciate the advice and will pay for that advice. I think the challenge is if people think it's all the same, then you will just go to the lowest denominator, and so that's the challenge, isn't it?
That's fascinating. And obviously you guys have been talking about having a real true understanding of the customer really and their needs. I suppose that goes hand in hand with risk management, which has been quite a trend really, if that's the right word. Obviously it's a big part of brokers' business. How does this really fit into this kind of advisory value add approach that we've sort of been talking about here?
It's a fundamental outturn of it. If you're investing heavily pre-cover in understanding the risk and using data to inform and give you better insight into the clients, what you will unearth is risks and challenges in that business that you can then support them with. And so, you know, our proposition is three-legged in that respect. It is diagnostic and understanding the risk. It is therefore then managing that risk and improving that risk, and it's also delivering a fantastic claim service as and when an issue or moment of truth occurs. And if you are not delivering on each of those three pillars, then you are missing a huge opportunity.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, fully agree with that, Phil. I think you know, if you're not doing that upfront assessment, giving them some advice, you know, lots of different processes are creating lots of different risks from them, and all the stuff that's happened during COVID, people changing machines to run 24 hours, all sorts of things. The risks have changed, and if you've not got the relevant tools to be able to assess that and present that to the insurer, then when you do get to the final pillar, as Phil said, around the claims, you're going to have a problem. And you know, claims are not getting easier to settle; they're getting harder to settle. So, you know, if you're not on top of your game on that, then you are going to have, you know, some major problems, and your client's not going to be happy if they're not going to get their claim paid. So, you know, which is what we're here for.
So we've certainly, sorry, Nick, go on.
No, just to add to that, this is, for me, and from a Markel strategic perspective, this is exactly the kind of engagement we're talking about, right? So with brokers providing greater engagement, better understanding, right? It's coupling up where that can take you as a broker. It's obviously going to have benefits in terms of being able to risk manage their insurance program, right? But half of SMEs wouldn't know where to go should they need a lawyer, right? This is practical stuff that's right now, right? And if they did need a lawyer, they're not convinced that they could find one that would give them the appropriate advice and support. Less than a third don't feel that that's a risk, right? So 2/3 of SMEs, when needed, right? Normally, when you have a lawyer involved in something to do with your business, it will ultimately end up in a claim of some kind, shape or form, either for them or for the company that they're dealing with, right? So you know, this kind of ecosystem that Phil mentioned is faceted, whether that's around tax and revenue, whether it's about legal support and advice or insurance and risk management. It's a virtuous circle rather than looking at it through one lens. So I think that this is where we're keen to kind of keep promoting that dialogue.
And that's our point. Actually expecting a broker to have all of the capabilities to deliver a broad advice proposition to clients from within their own resources is not feasible or reasonable. You have to select great partners to work with, and hence why we talk about partnering with our ecosystem, whether that is a specialist risk manager in the cyberspace, or whether it's a health and safety risk manager such as Stallard Kane, who we partner with, or whether it's lawyers or accountants or any other such partners who can add value to our client. You don't need to own, in today's world, you don't need to own all of the capabilities yourself. You just need to build strong partnership-led relationships where with firms that have a similar culture to you and put the client at the heart of the advice process.
And I think what's key in that, Phil, as well, is having that available when it's not a claim. So to Nick's point, it could lead to a claim, but if you engage at the right point, it doesn't lead to a claim. So what you actually end up with is a situation where we help a client through the situation, whether that's employment, whether it's taxation, whether it's in respect of something that might be happening in a care home, or a cyber incident that might have kicked off, and putting a 24/7 cyber support line in to try and help them. So I think it's about having those points of interaction for that client in the context of the broker relationship through the year. So they don't, it's not just about a renewal, it's not just a claim. It's about, I've got some support that I would like as an SME client some help with, that my broker's able to effect an introduction to get me that help and get me that support. And I think that can only be good for the relationship between the client and the broker, but it's also good for the insurer, because if you've got that support, supporting the client through the process, doing things in the right way, it reduces claims. So it actually does work for all of us if we try and make sure we've got that right support at the right time to the client.
My favorite phrase is fix a roof while the sun's shining. And that's exactly to your point, Neil, isn't it? Put the support in place in anticipation of an issue down track. You don't want to have to make those decisions, which are critical and important decisions with the client. You don't want to have to make those decisions under the spotlight of an urgent or major claim or incident.
But done in the right way as well. I mean, we've got a great case study. It's actually in the white paper, where there's a care home that was rated as inadequate, and CQC were in the process of effectively closing down the care home. And then because of the service that we're able to provide in terms of the practitioner service, we took that, help the client take that care home from inadequate to good. We also have a legal support in terms of protecting the license of that care home. You suddenly end up in a situation where, you've not just insured a client, you've improved the risk, which is great for the insurance business, but you've also really improved the business for the end client. And so that sort of virtuous thing that Nick just talked about in terms of it's good for all of us, and that as an example is probably a fairly extreme one, but people having incidences around, what do I do about my employment situation with this individual, and how do I manage it effectively, and how do I get help with that when I need it? That's where it really works. So I think it's not just a transactional relationship, points of interaction that can happen through a year. It's at a point of need for a client before it gets to a problem, which really not just solves that issue, but really enhances the relationship, I think, with the broker.
I think the interesting point is that we are trusted on a lot of occasions by our clients. So they will come to us first and foremost for advice, because they're not being, they're not on the clock, they're not paying by the hour when they have a conversation with us. We're quite good at problem solving and sorting issues out. And we've often got a big network of people that we can help them or get them involved in, or there might be something within their insurance policy that gives them that help, i.e., the stuff you guys are offering that we can direct them to without them, that they may have already paid for some service, but they perhaps didn't realise at the time, because there's that much that you give them at renewal that they just didn't fully understand everything that you've told them. But they've come to you and said, is there any help that you can give me on this? And like your point is, some people haven't got, regular lawyer or whatever. And so they don't want to, they'll come to someone they trust, and a business advisor, whether it's us or their accountant, are probably the two that they have. And they want to see what solutions we might be able to offer.
The most telling example of that is the private medical insurance market. I've never seen such a transactional marketplace as that. Yet the actual partner carriers have put a huge amount of effort into resourcing their proposition to deliver on mental health issues, on wellness issues, and yet the marketplace rarely in the past has used those additional services. All they've sought to do is compete on price. And now there's an opportunity. I know for a fact that those providers that are providing that sort of, if you like, softer advice and softer information for clients, they've never been busier in those services. Finally, the client has woken up and the broker has woken up to the value of these services.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely. I mean, as you know, Phil, from my background in terms of coming from Bupa, in terms of the private medical insurance, that was a huge thing for me coming into the commercial market. I couldn't believe there wasn't more discussion about sustainability, number one, right? So it's not, that was the thing in healthcare, in any market in the world, sustainable pricing. Sustainable pricing was such a key piece because of the benefit of that, right? So I was surprised there. And then the second bit was the integration in terms of the claims approach. We're working with the broker, the risk management. As you say, it is just so embedded within that organization. It is different within commercial lines. And I think that what we're talking about here is, brokers like yourselves, right, and others like you earn the right to be able to have that conversation with the customer, right? And let's be clear, if you're not earning the right to have that conversation with them, that customer is probably going to Google, right? That's the disparity in terms of where. I think that's the point. That's the massive opportunity it is to be able to diversify around the way the customer is managed. And I think that as Phil's articulated, as Simon's articulated, the success and the opportunity for growth that comes off the back of that for all of us in partnership is monumental. And, Katie, back to the piece, that's where the white paper is trying to start that dialogue. It's been a strategy of ours for 3 or 4 years. And the pandemic has really put this into absolute focus for many, many brokers and customers. So, as you said, Phil, this is really the kickstart of the pandemic making us work with customers in a different way to the way we have been, bringing us back into a bit more of a modern environment.
That's really interesting then. So how do you guys think that the commercial broking market can really evolve as we sort of progress through the pandemic and hopefully come out the other side, if perhaps all the recommendations and things we're talking about now are taken on board and actioned within the market?
I think there's a they've been, we, not they, we've all been through a situation none of us anticipated, none of us understood. We're still struggling to understand by the day what it means. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? People talk about insurance and whether they're paying claims or not, and we are, by the way, but the whole piece around the pandemic, actually, when we heard about pandemic, what we thought would happen is people would get ill and die. actually what's happening from an insurance point of view is government action closed lots of businesses. That's what the insurance is. It's not actually what we thought would be the primary risk associated with the pandemic. It's a secondary impact that's caused it. And therefore, I think people genuinely looking for help in understanding what risks they've got, you know, and the people who are best qualified to really help a client understand the risk and then to help manage that risk are the brokers working with the right insurer. You know, our sort of brand positioning over the last couple of years has been about expect more, because, you know, it shouldn't just be about a pure insurance relationship and a transaction around a renewal and maybe a claim, you know. So, you know, it is about understanding the role that a broker can really play in assessing that risk. And I would say working with the insurer, because to the point made earlier, specialist insurers in specialist markets can really help the client and the broker understand the risk properly and improve the risk. And I think that there will be an awareness now amongst end clients that they had risks that they didn't really understand or appreciate before. And they're really now looking to try and understand what risks they've got going forward and how a broker and an insurer can help them with that.
There is undoubtedly an opportunity presented by the pandemic for insurers and brokers to partner together to establish their future and move away from transaction, move away from the risk of the big data houses or Google or Amazon coming into our sector. Because with the best will in the world, relationship, trust, advice have never been higher on the agenda of the client. And if we seize that opportunity, then broking has got an amazing future. If we eschew it, if we forget about it and focus on price and a transaction, we have no future. And it's as stark as that, frankly, in my view.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. It's ours to lose, isn't it? At this point, very much ours to lose. We've got everything in front of us. It depends how, you know, which direction we want to go on the road, really.
Absolutely. I think that comes also back to kind of full circle to this sector kind of ecosystem based approach, right? Because what we're talking about also is, hey, some customers have business profiles, some industries, right? They are relatively simple, okay? There is a limited amount of risk advice and requirements that they've got. Let's be frank, right? You know, they are going to benefit from an easy transactional online capability because that's the space that their business fits perfectly within. But the majority of customers don't have simple businesses. They have complicated businesses. They have managing risks and they are challenged. The pandemic has just meant that all of them have been challenged all at the same time. So it's just really brings it to the fore. So I think the sector-driven approach gives you the opportunity to dive into different elements of their business and support them in different ways.
Really interesting. And Phil, you were talking there a bit about the future. So sort of brokers looking to perhaps future-proof their businesses and their operations sort of through the pandemic and out the other side. Are there any sort of particular steps that you guys think that brokers could take in terms of specifically like, right, we want to future-proof our business, what do we do? What would be your advice there?
Undoubtedly, the two P's of proposition and people. Investing in the capability of your firm, growing the ability to serve clients across a broader advice spectrum, and then focusing on proposition. And I'd reiterate, it's not about owning that proposition. It's about partnering with people who can deliver value-added proposition with you to the client. And I think as we've commoditized the sector, too many brokers are looking for easy short-term answers to solve their future profitability. They go to leveraging insurers, they go to racking up fees or profiteering from premium finance. I think there's a better, more sustainable way of doing that, and that's delivering a better proposition in conjunction with like-minded firms with better qualified, better, more capable people. And that's where the future of broking lies, investing in people and investing in the proposition for clients.
That's really interesting. Does anyone else have any views on future-proofing?
I think it's very much the same as what Phil said. It's knowing the customer. It's it's having a proposition that, you know, that's going to work for them, and, you know, and it's investing in your staff and making sure that you've got the best people delivering for your customers, and looking after your staff. If you've got good staff, you know, they will do a great job at looking after your customers. If you look after your staff, I think there's too many sort of stories out there of people not investing in their staff, not looking after their staff, and they wonder why perhaps the service that the staff are delivering isn't up to scratch. And that's been the opportunity. You know, there's a lot of good people out in our industry, and some of them are probably feeling a little bit browbeaten and, you know, maybe not able to do what they want to do for their customers at the moment because they're constrained within their organisation. And I think that's probably where ourselves, and I'm sure Phil, from stuff that I've read, are targeting, you know, our businesses.
It's about returning to the best traditions of broking. Maybe doing it with a modern twist, maybe working in partnership with a broader suite of firms that can deliver value to clients. But it's about returning to the natural cycle and working with clients for the long term, rather than this short-termist approach that the marketplace is in danger of heading down.
And I think it's that, you know, to your point there, for work with a client that you're going to have for many years, but through the years. Now, it's how we deliver that value through each year of insurance, not at the end of each year of insurance or at the point of claim. And I think, you know, working with insurers, because I think as an insurer, you know, sometimes maybe it can feel a little bit like perhaps it's about price. And actually, you know, it is about long-term relationships. It's about the insurers understanding the clients as well as the brokers understanding the clients, and working together with the client to improve the service that's delivered to the client. And that's not just insurance. It's about all the support services we've talked about today. It is about that legal support. It is about that tax support. It is about that consultancy support. And a good insurer will have those things available that the broker can leverage. So it's about working together as a partnership so that we deliver a service for the client through the year rather than just at the year end, to really deliver then that long-term sustainable relationship for the broker. We have
a phrase called the 365 renewal process. And it isn't an event that occurs once a year. It occurs every single day in support of the client.
And like it has done in no other period over the last 6 months, 7 months. You know, I mean, the support services that we've had, where if you've had a client who's a Markel client over the last 6 or 7 months, then they've probably used our services more than they ever have in the past, for their benefit. And that's the important thing. You know, this is something that the clients need, the clients want help with, and we're able to support them with. And I think, you know, for us, that's great. It's difficult. You know, I heard Simon talk about moving all his people into home working at the time of the pandemic. We had to do that at the same time as our core volumes were going absolutely through the roof. But actually, you know, that was great, because the demonstration of real value to the end client through that period, more than they've ever needed it before. So, you know, it was, I guess, a time of proving our worth, if you like, through that period. But, you know, that is part of the 365 and a time of real need for a sustained period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Katie, back to me in terms of the question for me, there's the ability to agree with everything that's been said. Pick the right partner. You know, that's really, really important, right? Because that broker strategy in terms of that advisory and support, you have to have the right panel of providers supporting it. Otherwise, because what we don't want to do is fall over when the customer needs it, when it needs it most. And I think that comes back to what we're all saying is, do you know what, claims, whilst it is a moment of truth, don't make it the moment of truth, right?
Absolutely.
I think the only other thing I would probably just challenge back for you guys and perhaps some of the other insurers is, there's been a lot of use of a lot of these services during this period, but some of that data isn't necessarily available to us to be able to see very quickly that this client has accessed these services. So when we do come around to that renewal process, you know, how have we got that information to say, well, we know that you've got some great wins there on R&D. Do we know who those clients are that you've helped with their R&D, so that we know that we can sell the value of what they've been using all year? That's probably the challenge, of linking the technology up.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Simon. And I think, it shouldn't be something that we do at the point of renewal. It should be something we're engaging with you on through as the services are used, So, I think that's a fair sort of request, which is a more open dialogue through the year on how clients are using, as we start to extend the range of services, as opposed to knowing when they've renewed or when they've claimed, knowing when they've called the helpline, knowing when they've gone to our online hub and downloaded a template legal document. That type of thing, I think, is a fair request, which is how do we improve that flow of communication between us through the year?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
That's absolutely something that we aspire to do, Simon. The white paper does give some insights in terms of those facts and figures in terms of utilisation as well. So check it out.
And while we're at this point, then, Nick, did you want to sort of talk about some of the key takeaways, perhaps, from the white paper that you guys have done?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is I don't really want to go over what we've been talking about, because this is about us collectively, the four of us on here talking about and trying to inspire some of our broker contacts and colleagues, and what we're trying to do for the customer as an industry, into thinking about the things that we're all trying to do strategically. And I don't need to say anything more than a lot of the areas that we've covered, right, from a provider's perspective, is giving us some thought leadership to us taking some time out and recognizing that, putting some facts around it, really articulating and giving examples of where that can happen, and just helping with that education, right? Because we're all on this webinar all 150% bought into the strategy of getting closer to customers and providing risk management services across broader issues facing our SME customers. And this is about trying to lead that discussion. So for me, there's many things in there that are worth reading, that really just provide some clarity and some certainty around some of the dialogue that we've already had. So read it.
We've talked about partnering with our ecosystem. There can be no more important member of the ecosystem of a broker than a reliable, trusted partner insurer. And the opportunity for brokers and insurers to really seize hold of a partnership-led relationship and focus on delivering a combined solution for the clients has never been more in focus. If we get it right, then there's a great future for advice in our industry.
Absolutely.
And that sort of partnering with the ecosystem, it sort of presents a more holistic approach almost to insurance. Is there anything else within a sort of more holistic offering that you think is important to note here for brokers that could potentially benefit SME clients?
I ask of my advisors in the business to always think through the lens of the client. So getting into a mindset of putting yourself in the client's chair and understanding their issues on a day-to-day basis. Our language in the firm is, you've only had a great day if you've done something which is purely and solely on the agenda of the client. And that distills and cements an approach to advice rather than transaction. And so I wouldn't be prescriptive as to what else should be in the ecosystem. That depends on the sector you're working with. It depends on the clients you're engaged with. But understanding their broader issues and extending your proposition through long-term partnership relationships with like-minded firms has got to be the best way of delivering valued outcomes to clients.
I think most of the brokers that will be viewing this, will fit into that SME definition. So I think it's important that, we're all running SME businesses. So, we are our own customer to a certain degree. Look at what are the things that have affected us, what are the things that are causing us problems. They mirror across a lot of businesses. So, whether it is mental health issues, whether it is employment, whether it's tax, all those issues we're already, facing ourselves. So, I suppose we're already in our customers' shoes in that regard. So think about, what would work, what would we want, and deliver some of that.
I must admit, it's all about learning, right, in terms of that, Simon. And that point, and the point that was being made by both of you earlier, one of the takeaways for me is that we're always looking at ways in which we can provide kind of differentiated added value capability that really gets to the heart of the customer's needs. And the mental health piece, that working environment piece, has come up a few times today. And actually, I'm going to take that away as something for us to think about in terms of how we can partner or how we can provide that kind of full circle there. So watch this space on that one, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm aware we're coming up to probably the final few minutes. So I'm just going to sort of fire one more question at you guys. Obviously, we've covered a lot of ground in terms of things that perhaps brokers need to think about in terms of being successful and growing their businesses as we move through the pandemic. I just wondered if there's anything else that you guys think we might have missed, or that you'd like to flag up as perhaps something that can help brokers to achieve this success post-pandemic.
Look, for me, there's a piece where, look, there's a big thank you to Insurance Times, really. Being able to put these type of debates together and allow us as an industry to kind of be able to share these thoughts and strategies and experiences is absolutely essential in terms of being able to move the industry forward. Thanks to Phil and thanks to Simon for contributing to that, as they have as well. I mean, it's continuing to do this. This is thought leadership in action, and that sharing is, as Phil's mentioned a few times, and Simon as well. This is the opportunity to drive that change, and we've got to keep doing things like this. Keep it on the agenda.
I would say, I saw some research the other day that brokers and insurers are trusted. I think it was 90% of people now trust their broker at least the same or more than they did pre-COVID. Right. So when we're going through this experience and we're thinking, there's lots of issues we're all dealing with, but there are lots of positives coming out of this. I think the frequency of interaction that we're finding through digital media is increased. Than we were putting things off until the next time we can get together over a bite to eat or in an office. We don't do that now. We respond more dynamically with each other. So I think there's a lot of good coming out of the situation. A lot of good understanding that. Risk and understanding of risk as a business is important, right? And the impact it can have on your business is probably better understood than ever before. So I think out of this, Katie, we have a really good foundation from which to learn, if you like, and build. And that I would ask us to take things like that frequency of interaction and use that as something that we keep front of mind as we go out of this situation, which is that regular interaction with my client, that regular interaction with my broker, my insurer. Let's not go back to, well, I have to wait until something's scheduled in a few weeks' time or until I can physically get face to face, because you really understand, I think, each other better with that frequency of interaction when you're in the moment, rather than storing things up and things becoming more of an agenda at some future point.
It's a fantastic point, Neil. Embracing the change will determine your success in the future. If the marketplace reverts back to how it always operated, we'll have missed the biggest opportunity that's been presented to us.
Yeah, I've got two things, which would be, I think you need your customer to love you. If your customers love you and what you're doing, then that's huge. So making sure that you get them to that stage. And then I think the other thing is as an individual, you've got to keep learning, and keep reviewing what's going on. Don't be blindsided by what's going on in our industry. Look at what other sectors are doing. Look in different countries, how people are servicing customers, and look at how we can always continuously improve our proposition and ourselves as individuals. I think that's absolutely key.
That's a great point, Simon. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the webinar today. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists. Your insights have been absolutely fascinating. Time flies when you're talking insurance. So thank you very much for your time, everyone. And thank you again for everyone watching today.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.